Do you want to know how to actually win your fantasy league? Of course you do. Today we're going to break down step by step how you can do just that. And of course it starts in the first round. Now assuming you don't have a top 2 pick where you're going to go McCaffrey and or Jonathan Taylor, Justin Jefferson in round 1. You see, Justin Jefferson leads the NFL in receiving yards since 2020 with 3,016, and the crazy part is he's done this on less targets than the other guys, the other receivers in the top 5. But that's not all, because Jefferson in 2021 led the league in deep targets. And new head coach Kevin McConnell wants to throw more often and more often downfield in 2022. Now here's what you need to know about O'Connell. He's been the Rams offensive coordinator the last 2 years. Yeah, the Super Bowl winning Rams last year, record-setting Cooper Kupp season. And across these 2 years, the Rams have ranked top 10 in pass attempts per game, and just last year they were number 8 with 601 passes. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings over that exact same time ranked 20th in passing plays per game. In 2020, they ranked 27th, and then in 2021, they ranked 13th. So what does this all boil down to? Well, you're going to have more volume coming Justin Jefferson's way in 2022. So take him and then grab this second round RB. And that would be Saquon Barkley, who's 100% healthy in Giants camp and is about to be a 3-down back. And that's because he's got no competition. Let's take a look at it. There's free agent addition Matt Breida, who's talented, but only 85 touches since 2019 due to injuries and just wearing down. There's Gary Brightwell, who only has 2 career NFL touches, the second-year player. And then you have Jason Corbin, who's an undrafted 2022 free agent rookie. Oh yeah, and one more thing. It is very true that Saquon Barkley sees more targets with Eli Manning. He saw 7.1 targets with Eli Manning, a 122 target pace for the year, which is unreal elite when Manning was playing quarterback. However, he still sees 5.2 targets per game, which would be 88 targets on the season with Daniel Jones over his career through 19 games, which would have ranked top 5 last year. So secure Saquon and then grab this third round running back. And welcome to the dance floor, James Conner, who last year ranked 2nd in the NFL with 14 goal line touches. Only Jonathan Taylor and his 20 goal line touches, which is as elite as it gets, had more. And now Chase Edmonds is gone. And this is noteworthy because James Conner saw 27% more red zone touches when Edmonds missed last year. And not only that, but he saw 64% more fantasy points, 14.1 to 23.1. And sure, Conner scored 18 touchdowns last year, which is not sustainable, but he was expected to score 14. That's how good the touches he was getting in a solid offense were. And this year, he's expected and projected to score 11. So take him in round 4 and then get this 4th round wide receiver. And I'm looking at you, DJ Moore, who last year with Sam Darnold saw 15% less fantasy points than his career average. And this is very odd because he actually saw a career high in targets with Darnold at 9.9 per game when Darnold was out there and starting, which was more than 2 more than his average. But yet, he still scored less fantasy points. And how is this possible? Well, the simple translation is even though he saw more targets, Darnold was not accurate on those pass attempts. But I have some good news for you. Baker Mayfield was recently named the QB1, the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. And when he's been healthy in 3 of his 4 seasons, he averages nearly a top 10 efficiency season, right outside of it at 11th overall. So you can expect more accurate targets for DJ Moore this year. And finally, after 3 straight years of 4 touchdowns, expect him to have a new career high in touchdowns this season. So draft him and then take this elite 5th round value. And I'm talking about Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams, who actually scores 48% more fantasy points in his career with Justin Herbert, 13.5 versus 9.1. And just this past season, he set a new career high in fantasy points at 15.4, which was 39% more than his previous career high from 3 years ago at 11.1. And now there's a reason for this. Here's why it happened. Last year, the Chargers brought on a new offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi from the Saints, who made it his mission to make Mike Williams his new Michael Thomas. And he succeeded in doing this by making the targets Mike Williams was seeing much shorter, which led to more receptions, more accurate targets. He ranked 47th in average target distance, and Mike Williams is known for always being top 10 in this metric. And now not only were we getting more targets and more accurate targets with a solid QB in Justin Herbert, but Mike Williams was also top 5 in end zone targets last year with guys like Stephon Diggs, Jefferson, and DK Metcalf. And as we roll into 2022, expect this to continue. Now let's discuss the best 6th round pick in fantasy. And this is the easiest one on here because Allen Robinson was left for dead in Chicago last year. He scored 48% less points than his career average, 7.5 points per game last year, when his career average before that was 14.5. And simply put, this was due to Justin Fields being bad. He ranked 33rd in accuracy rating and 33rd in true completion percentage. Reminder, there's only 32 NFL teams. But here's the good news. The reason I feel confident in saying it wasn't Allen Robinson's fault, and it really wasn't Fields' fault. This offense, the offensive line, just terrible situation overall, but it was because Allen Robinson was still top 15 at beating man coverage. He was still getting open at will. And now he's paired up with Matthew Stafford Stafford, who, yeah, versus man coverage last year, just like Robinson was good, Stafford was the best #1 quarterback in passer rating versus man coverage. So you need Robinson, and then you want to take this 7th round wide receiver. And that would be Rashad Bateman, who on average on Fantasy Pros ADP right now goes as the 34th wide receiver off the board in round 7. And to me, this is a steal because the Ravens, they have 45% of their targets vacated. They lost them in free agency last year, which adds up to being 267 targets they have to replace. And you might be wondering, new players were brought in this offseason, right? Wrong. Baltimore did not draft or add any players in free agency. And the remaining wide receivers on the roster, although some of them are decent late round values in deeper leagues like Devin Duvernay and James Prochet, yeah, these guys have a combined 72 NFL catches behind Bateman. Plus, Bateman as a rookie last year, while being injured for the beginning of the season, still ranked borderline top 25 versus man coverage, and these things usually improve as your career goes on. So the takeaway is there's not a lot of competition here, and Bateman is getting open often, which means he's going to see a lot of usage in 2022. And similar things can be said for this 8th round running back. And that would be Chase Edmonds, who was the first running back signed in free agency when it opened on March 14th this past season by the Dolphins, meaning they prioritized getting him. They really, really wanted him. And this kind of shows if you're the first guy off the market, you're going to get paid good money. He made over $6 million, which is 2 times more than any other Miami running back is going to get paid this year. And now check this out. Chase Edmonds really doesn't have any competition. I mean, there's 30-year-old Raheem Mostert coming off of injuries who's missed 73% of his games since 2020. There's Sony Michel, who was one of the most inefficient running backs last year. And then there's Myles Gaskin, who's a decent pass catcher, but not a good runner and a potential cut candidate. And then you compare those guys to Chase Edmonds, who not only did he get the priority in free agency and get paid the money, but he's been a top 5 running back in efficiency, yards per touch, since he entered the NFL. He's the clear RB1 here. And because of this, he's a top 65 player for me. I'm actually 24 spots ahead of average draft position, meaning I think he's a 6th round pick that we get to take in the 8th round. Major value. And by the way, if you want to see my top 200, my tiers, my wants and avoids list updated every single week, as well as receive a $20 Amazon gift card, you can do so by clicking the link in the description and following the 2 simple steps to acquire your supreme cheat sheet. And now, if for some reason you don't like the cheat sheet, I'll refund your minimum deposit of getting it of $10, and you can keep the cheat sheet and the $20 Amazon gift card. Yeah, that's correct. You can keep it all and not even have to spend any money, worst case scenario. I want to make this as risk-free as possible for you. So if you're interested in learning more and joining the thousands of people using the cheat sheet right now, click the link in the description. So we want Edmonds in round 8. He's a great value. And then we want this 9th round QB. And that would be Trey Lance, who has the quarterback cheat codes for fantasy football. In 2.5 starts last year, Trey Lance saw 5 red zone carries. And those 5 red zone carries would have put him on pace to have 34 on the entire season, which last year, Josh Allen only had 32, leading the league. And all the quarterbacks who actually were up there in red zone attempts on the ground, and Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, yeah, they're all top 5 fantasy quarterbacks. That's the upside Trey Lance has. And one more thing. If you look at Lance's carries per game, it's going to be an inaccurate number. It's going to say 6.3, but that's because they're counting games where he maybe took like 1 snap or he was just dressed as the backup and threw 1 pass. Lance actually saw 12.4 attempts per game in his 2.5 true starts, which was more than the NFL leader Lamar Jackson saw on the ground last year at 11.1, 12% more than that. The upside here as a rusher is massive for Lance. So draft him in 2022 and then get this next wide receiver, because let's be honest, you want upside in round 10 of your drafts. And that's exactly what Kadarius Toney from the Giants provides you. And I know your first thought, oh, he's so injured. Yes, we're not taking him in the first round. Yeah, if you don't like injuries, don't take him in the first round. But this is a 10th round player who has league winning upside. And yeah, go through the injuries. He had a bunch of different injuries last year. He's dealing with a hamstring that he's actually gotten over right now in camp as we record this. But the whole point of this is to take on some risk, because if you don't, somebody in your league will, and they're going to end up beating you because they have league winners and you don't. You took all the safe guys and you finished 4th in your league. Big whoop. And you can see for yourself the upside that Kadarius Toney has. Not only did he average 14 points per game when Sterling Shepard was out last year, which is basically a borderline top 10 wide receiver, but the only guys who were better than him versus man coverage last year, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, and Cooper Kupp. Those are the only guys who can get open at the same rate Kadarius Toney was getting open. That is clearly speaks volumes for itself. Impressive. Simply put, you want Toney in round 10. So this is the step-by-step guide on how to win your fantasy league. But if you want to see 7 breakout players that are going to help you, especially later in drafts, win your league, then check out this beautiful video right here. And make sure you act fast on the players in those videos, because they're going quicker and quicker in drafts by the day. And hey, hit subscribe.